This is a historical moment pertaining to a peace pact that hopefully will be abided by all parties in response to trying to establish a better understanding of love, grace, and peace, and utopia and prosperity between all people and not just a few.
All year long, C-SPAN has delivered the most comprehensive coverage of America 250, capturing the people, places, and moments that have shaped our nation's story. This Independence Day week, join C-SPAN as America celebrates its 250th birthday. Tune in to the C-SPAN networks for live coast-to-coast coverage of this historic national celebration. On July 3rd and 4th, C-SPAN brings you live around-the-clock festivals and parades, along with conversations about America's...
C-SPAN's always pretty good on stuff like that. Let's go to weather real quick. Having major fires out west. Major fires. Unbelievable in how much property has already been destroyed. Kangaroo getting cold.
They are easily scared. You can try scaring them out, but I certainly wouldn't want to get into a boxing match with a kangaroo. So I think probably just let it go.
Coming up, the world's largest leaf blower.
Just trust me, he wasn't worried about hygiene at the time. He was just worried about getting cold. Kangaroos are something else. They're a byproduct of the rabbit. They're just bigger.
Of what caused the algae, and is it finally being dealt with? What do we know?
Oh God, here we're back on the algae
Yeah,
again?
I think we have a couple of causes that seem pretty plausible. One is that they filled the pool with city tap water, which is actually full of stuff called phosphates that are supposed to design to stop corrosion in pipes, but also feed algae, and also that they turned off the filters for 36 hours to have a better backdrop for this UFC fight. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good explanation of why we saw that bright green algae bloom that really mucked up the pool for several days. I still want to know more about why the bottom of the pool is coming off. Now, remember, we spent millions and millions of dollars to put blue coating on the bottom of the pool, and after a few days, it started peeling off and floating to the top. They're going to have to drain the pool again to fix that, and I'd really like to know what went wrong that allowed that to happen so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, there have been, you're talking about the peeling paint liner, of course. There have been lots of stories. I mean, President Trump blamed it on vandalism. What do we know? I mean, what are the big questions you have about it? What do we really know about it at this point?
Well, the thing to start with here, Jen, is that this was a no-bid contract, right? The government gave away a contract to this company that had never really done any project like this before, never done any government contract before, without doing the things that make government contracting work usually, looking around for other bids, seeing if they could find people who could do the job better or more cheaply. They just chose these people and handed them this money in this contract. And along the way, there were warning signs. People within the Interior Department warned that their paint job had bubbles, it had holes, it had blisters. There were concerns that it wouldn't really work. And so once they fill the pool with water and it starts peeling up, yeah, then there's millions of dollars spent on this job that didn't even last a month.
The reflecting pool is hardly...
I got a suggestion. You can take it for what it's worth. Concrete and water has a certain element that will build after a period of time, regardless whether it be quickly or slowly. It will still build in response towards algae and basically a film of bad stuff. If there was any way possible, I don't know that it would be or could be. A liner would not do it because a liner eventually would deteriorate and wear out. But I've seen so many things on YouTube and Facebook pertaining to covering over a floor with an epoxy. And after it dries, it looks remarkable. You can make it have rocks in it, you can make it have boulders in it, you can make it have fish in it, you can make it have anything in it. The only way to truly kill it, and even then, it's still going to have to be treated, the water itself, is to go in and reformigate the whole pool full of basically an acrylic epoxy clear, and put whatever that you want to put in it, put army men in it, put our military in it, put fish in it, put cats in it, put whatever in it that you want, that you desire. As it settles up, as it gets hard, then within a few weeks you can fill it full of water, and then it'll be transparent from there. People that's in control of Disney and Dollywood and Six Flags and etc. should be on top of their game pertaining to stuff like this. I mean, whenever they can build an aquarium, which is one of the largest aquariums in the world, in East Tennessee pertaining to Dollywood, and keep it clean and keep it looking nice, I guarantee you somebody has put a great deal of thought and a great deal of effort in doing what they have done. So pertaining to the reflection pool, that would be the only way that I know. Even if you spray it down with a rubberized coating, eventually the rubberized coating is going to break away. The only way to do it would be to formigate a whole foundation of nothing but clear epoxy or clear whatever, and make it look natural that way.
Of a woman's car.
Oh, wow.
Oh, there he is. Well, the woman had reported hearing meowing coming from her engine. They managed to rescue 2 kittens, but a third one, which you see here, was stuck. Thankfully, the woman had a chicken drumstick in her car, which the officer used as bait to recover the last kitten. A young giraffe has been found safe more than 2 weeks after she escaped from a Texas.
Well, I tend to wonder if the drumstick that she had in her car wasn't the very thing that led or introduced or entrapped the kittens to begin with. I don't know.
Giraffes by scaling a rocky slab to escape. Well, her disappearance went viral on social media. Gracie's owner had offered a $5,000 reward for her return. Thanks for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90s coming up right after the short break. Stay with us.
That flew through some of the world's most secure airspace above China's fortified capital, where drones and planes are highly restricted.
So we've just moved about 2 blocks away from the tallest building in Beijing. If you look above the yellow lettering, you can see a gash in the side of the building.
The stunning sight leaving Anna, a Beijing student home from college in Boston, wondering how this could happen here, just a few minutes drive from Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City.
I'm actually scared about it because this is central business district. I work in this, I have an intern in this area, so it's kind of more scary for me what if I'm still working in this area.
Beijing authorities have released no details about the crash, including whether this was an accident, intentional, or what the pilot's motivation could have been. Police on the scene stopping people from taking pictures or videos. Posts of the scene quickly erased from China's strictly controlled and censored social media.
This is all what always Chinese social media, how it's worked. There's a lot of social media police. They will delete everything sensitive.
Online images showing the plane's registration code seem to point to a domestically manufactured light sport aircraft, a Sunward SA-60L Aurora, owned by a local general aviation company. We don't know how many people were on board, with Beijing's local police division responsible for where this happened telling CNN over the phone they were, quote, not familiar with the situation. Preliminary flight data from Flight Radar 24 posted online appeared to show a severely deviated flight path for the aircraft. So we're at the base of the building hours after this crash happened, and a silence has fallen over this normally bustling area of the CBD. Behind us, a couple yards, couple meters across the street from us, there's still police tape that is set up around the perimeter of the building. The tower itself, one of the tallest in the world, the CITIC Tower, standing as a 109-story symbol of Beijing, known across China. For now, the people of China's capital still processing how this could happen in this citadel of a city.
Wow.
The wild story. Our thanks to Mike Valerio for his reporting in Beijing. Thanks for watching the first hour of the story as the next hour starts right now. And coming up, the story is growing desperation more than 48 hours after earthquakes leveled parts of Venezuela. Survivors still searching through piles of rubble for their...
That's a bad deal.
We owe America.
A bad deal. That's a real bad deal between all them earthquakes. And they're only going to intensify. They're only going to get worse. They're only going to get worse. Just like Christ said, that there will be earthquakes in diverse places, indicating of the end times coming to about. End times.
Whose stated goal was to eradicate Western civilization, yeah, that actually holds up to what Trump said. To Donald Trump, 7% of the voters in New York gave him the enormous gift to now run against communists nationwide. Posted on True Social, the communists are finally making their move. I've been waiting and preparing for this for a long time. The game is on. Followed up with a video of JFK. Yes, the Democratic Party has changed since those times, warning about communism.
Let me ask you, sir, just how serious a threat to our national security are these communist subversive activities in the United States today?
Well, I think they're serious. I think it's a matter that we should continue.
By hand and with a shovel. He says he had no idea the destruction was so extensive until he arrived with his family.
I'm looking for my relatives, my mother and my little brother. The only thing I know is that they were in the apartment. I was not there. We are trying to find anything to understand what happened and to find even just a small piece. Even if we only find belongings or papers, it would be good to find them. We are searching.
CNN contributor Stefano Pozzebon has the latest on Venezuela's recovery efforts.
Panic on board as passengers brace for powerful tremors. Just one glimpse of the chaos unleashed after two massive earthquakes struck Venezuela. This image from the public broadcaster Telesur shows large cracks splitting the tarmac at Caracas International Airport, underscoring the damage to critical infrastructure.
Debemos informar.
On Friday, authorities said almost 1,000 people have been confirmed dead. This toll is expected to rise. Tens of thousands are still reported missing. Emergency teams are racing against time to dig through shattered concrete, listening for any sign of life. In the Caracas district of Chacao, rescuers pulled
like 1,000 9/11s at one time,
while others remain trapped inside.
Ya rescatamos a 3 personas.
We have rescued
bad deal. People need to pray for these people. Lord God in heaven, have mercy on us all.
As Venezuela struggles to cope with the scale of the disaster, international help is finally trickling in. The United States is sending elite rescue teams, military transport, and $150 million in humanitarian aid. El Salvador, Mexico, Colombia, and several other countries have also deployed search and rescue crews, medical teams, and emergency supplies.
Nosotros somos especialistas en búsqueda.
We specialize in urban search and rescue in collapsed structures. Our team is trained to conduct search, rescue, and recovery operations in structural collapse scenarios, the kind of emergency Venezuela is currently facing.
But the logistical challenges to mobilize the aid remain. These relief convoys loaded.
Does people remember all the talk less than about maybe 6 months ago pertaining to how Venezuela is one of the leading oil manufacturers in pumping out oil out of the ground. This is a result from it. This is a result from it. OPEC, Shell, Exxon, Valdez. This is a result of it.
Just 9 days after it was signed. On Friday, the U.S. Central Command said it struck a series of Iranian military targets. It said it was a response to an Iranian attack on a cargo ship near the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday, which President Trump called a, quote, foolish violation. Iranian state media says Tehran responded by targeting U.S. positions in the region, which Washington has not confirmed. U.S. official tells CNN the latest strikes didn't imply a return to major combat operations. Now, ahead of the attacks, President Trump sidestepped questions about whether the ceasefire with Iran is still in place, but he said that Tehran still has some military muscle.
We still have a fight. They have some capability, not much. They're not winning or anything, but they have some capability. They can still shoot.
Not much of a cease whenever you look at it, what they're doing.
Well, and Lebanon have just made the first step towards a potential future peace deal. They signed an agreement with the U.S. on Friday after 4 days of talks in Washington. Secretary of State Marco Rubio calls the agreement
That's what we just videoed.
beginning, describing it as a step towards a broader peace. Under the document, Israel will pull force out of 2 areas in southern Lebanon and hand the sites to the Lebanese military. But a Hezbollah member of Lebanon's parliament called on the government to retract anything that's been agreed to with Israel. Hezbollah, the Iran proxy group whose militants are fighting Israeli troops in Lebanon, not part of the agreement. In the last hour, I asked CNN national security analyst Alex Pleitsis if Hezbollah could bring down that agreement.
It was almost as a sub-agreement between Lebanon and Israel in terms of a ceasefire between the two of them and how this was going to work out. So it's, from what I've been told by U.S. officials I've been talking to, there are a couple of phases that'll be agreed to in terms of geographic territory where Israel will withdraw and will hand the territory over to the Lebanese armed forces. But in return, the Lebanese armed forces will attempt to begin to disarm Hezbollah in those specific areas as part of a pilot program. And if that continues, then they'll try that through the rest of southern Lebanon. That's been unsuccessful for almost 40 years, which is why this is historic. So the next week or so, I think, is going to be a pretty amazing opportunity to work towards peace, or it's quite frankly going to be an opportunity for Iran to sow discord in this area and potentially disrupt the agreement. And that's the problem, because we have the IRGC in Iran, which has been at odds with the civilian government. So we'll find out whether or not they've been operating at odds with each other or whether or not they're actually in cahoots.
Joined now live here in Los Angeles by the 3-term governor of Washington, Jay Inslee, and the former lieutenant governor of California, Abel Maldonado. Welcome back, both of you. Lieutenant Governor Maldonado, let's go to you first and talk about this Iran war in the context of gas prices, which is the way that so many people here who are struggling to make ends meet have seen this war. They've seen their gas prices go up. We've seen gas prices fall a bit in the last few weeks as the conflict has lessened a little bit. How do you sort of see what this war has taught us about energy?
Well, on the energy side, I can tell you this. There's no American that's happy with gas prices today. And as a farmer, there's no farmer in America that's happy with diesel prices. That's just the way it is, Alex. So let's look, this Iran war has been something that from the get-go we were told, and President Trump was very clear, the reason was to make sure that Iran would never, ever have a nuclear weapon and to come up with an agreement, Alex. But I can tell you this, I personally feel like Iran doesn't want an agreement. And what do I say that? Because that keeps the mullahs in power, the Ayatollah in power. I feel like the Castros never wanted us to have a relationship with them. But at the end of the day, this has been a hardship for farmers, it's been a hardship for the American people, and that's why President Trump is trying to finish this and close it off as quick as he can.
So does it sound like what you're saying is that the war wasn't worth it?
At the end of the day, I think Iran, for us, I'll just be very blunt with you. Iran is a long way from the USA. And the last thing we need is for them to have a nuclear weapon that can reach us. We know they reached Diego Garcia, which is about 4 kilometers away. So they're getting close. I don't want them to have a war. So for me, non-nuclear weapons for Iran is very important. I took a lump on the diesel. The American people are taking a lump. We want this to come to an end now.
Governor, your sort of life's passion work has been talking about climate energy issues. We've seen that with the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, energy prices going up around the world, sort of questions about what we should be doing in terms of that. Also, our reliance on fossil fuels has been highlighted again. How do you see this?
Well, this has been a disaster by Donald Trump on many measures. First off, he tore up an agreement. We had an agreement to keep them from becoming nuclear. We had open straits, the Obama agreement. We had the straits are open, so he basically has dug a deep hole and pulled Americans down into it. Now we're trying to climb out of the hole. But there's a deeper lesson for this, I think, out of this terrible tragedy, which is this is the kind of thing happens when we continue to be dependent on fossil fuels. You know, no one has fought a war over bringing wind turbines through the Straits of Hormuz, and we've fought at least 2 wars. I was adamantly against the Iraq excursion, adamantly against this, and we're all tied up on fossil fuels. And the good news is we now have the ability to break free of that monkey on our back. We've had 90% of all the new energy coming on now is renewable energy. It's cheaper in 90% of the country. Some batteries have come up 97% in California. So we got all these good things. We need to make a choice to seize the future in clean energy and get this monkey off our back.
And yet, politically, it has not always been a winning issue. So much so that some Democrats have been talking about Democrats should even talk about the issue of climate change. I was just in Austria recently hosting a climate conference on behalf of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger with Kamala Harris on stage. She said we should talk about this issue. Here's what she told me.
There was a time where we had to convince people it's the right thing to do, even though it is not readily available, even though solar is something you may have to invest in, right? So we can also center this conversation in a way that we think about the consumer of products and how is it in their best interest when they're looking at their monthly bill.
Because we know that the Trump administration is moving forward with more plants. They are trying to look at doing more oil drilling, potentially off the coast of a place like California. We know that they're pushing back. The energy secretary saying all that stuff is great, but it's actually cheaper to do things the old-fashioned way. What's your advice in terms of talking about this in a way to win over voters and win the argument?
We should definitely talk about the disaster that climate change is imposing on this. I just met a couple who lost their business in the Altadena fire. I've been through 5 fires. I was in the Flores fire and the Woolsey fire, and it burned down 2 whole towns in my state. We now have massive floods. We all know that this is a problem. So the question on how to talk about this, I think it's very clear for us. One, we should start the discussion on costs because that's the first thing in people's minds, gas prices. We should talk about the chaos that Donald Trump is causing in foreign policy. We should talk about the corruption that he's responsible for because basically he had these oil guys come in and say, give me $1 billion, I'll shut down access to your competitors in wind because it's cheaper. The oil and gas guys are afraid of this. And we need to talk about the tremendous possibility to adopt clean energy and stop climate change. And it needs to be part of our discussion, in part because we're so right. And by the way, it's not just that Donald Trump wants to do coal. He's stopping Americans from being able to get access to the cheapest energy in America, which is solar and wind and batteries. He's stopping them. And why? Corruption. It's pure and simple.
You're shaking your head.
I don't see it that way, obviously, with all due respect to the governor. But I can tell you this: you look at 10 years ago, I would say that folks on the conservative side or on the Republican side, or even agriculturalists, I would say that they were kind of skeptic on climate change. But as time has gone on, you ask people, for example, the vineyard guys here in California, they used to harvest grapes in September, October. Now they're harvesting in June and July. Why? Climate change has been warmer. Same thing with other crops here in California. So they're starting. The question is, how do we get here? How do we move forward? You had Kamala Harris with the Governor Schwarzenegger in Austria, Alex. What did Governor Schwarzenegger say? I think he said we should look at maybe some new refineries. We have new technologies. Why are we exporting gas to Texas and then bringing it back, increasing the cost?
That says we should do
People
nuclear
can't
too.
afford gasoline either.
And he also says we should talk about it differently. He says we should say
Absolutely.
terminating pollution, which people can understand, versus talking about climate, which is a concept that people don't get. But you say that people are starting to get it. President Trump says that climate change is a hoax. I mean, he is, showcasing the oil industry, showcasing coal leaders, and he is stopping some of the solar issue from going forward.
Well, I don't know if you remember when he was campaigning, he said that he didn't support wind because it kills the birds. He didn't support solar because if your wife says they want to watch Trump at night, but there's no sun that day, your TV wasn't going to work. So he's being comments about it. So look, there is climate change. It's happening. How do we get it in a pragmatic, reasonable way to move forward without hurting the bank? Because some people can't afford these electric cars. These cars can't get you to where you want to get to. So we're getting there. We're not there yet.
What is the best way to do that?
First thing, you got to get rid of Donald Trump and unfortunately his cult of the Republican Party. And it is a cult who's following it. Look, what American president should have the right to tell any American, you can't have cheaper electricity? And that's what he's doing. He's saying, you can't have solar because it's cheaper than coal. You can't have wind because it's cheaper than coal. You can't have batteries because it's cheaper than coal. I don't want my buddies that I took money from to have to compete. Now, that's just flat wrong for any American president.
But if you believe in freedom of choice, then should you also have the choice to have coal, to have nuclear, to have all these other things?
Well,
I mean, do you believe in an all of above energy?
I do not believe we should be subsidizing. Right now, we heavily subsidize the coal industry. Look, he's issued an order, this is unbelievable, to keep a coal plant open in Washington where nobody will buy the electricity because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
This is a corruption that makes Teapot Dome look just like an absolute misdemeanor of what's going on here. And first, we have to break this stranglehold of this cult on our energy policies, and that means voting for Democrats this year.
All right. Well, I know that's not Abel's solution, but I appreciate you making the argument. Both of you guys, great to see you on a Friday night. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you being here. After the break, a look at Friday's World Cup matches as teams.
First of all, there's been an energy crisis all over the world. A major energy crisis. Secondly, you're dealing with greed and you're dealing with an ego. Certain people that's willing to drag everybody down the mouth of the volcano up into the very last, and then by the time you get to the very last, it'll be too late for all of us. It's almost like they're destined in wanting to dig not only their hole, but everybody else's too as well. And third, if people aren't willing to adapt, if people ain't willing to learn, to grow, to mature, to evolve, then obviously you're either going to be left behind or you're going to cause such a dilemma that it's going to be catastrophic in more ways than you can even begin to imagine. And it's really sad because of somebody like Donald Trump that has went in and tried to strong arm all these other different ideals and all these different solving problems.
Well, looks like an SUV stuck in the snow. So we get the big payloader to pull them out. Looks like it's working. Ooh. Ah!
That didn't go as planned, really.
Just when help arrives, you know, you need more help. The good news is,
the capability of Iran ever having nuclear weapons. I mean, that's a big part. And the other part is we need to have free commerce through the Strait of Hormuz, you know, and what's in those details, I think ultimately, yeah, I would like to be able to opine on that.
Unequivocally, without question, this is what Congress needs to be voting on. And let's not forget, you know, Congress is not just 435 men and women, and this is not about a power trip. This is about giving the American people a say over a matter of war, and our Constitution is quite clear on that. We're committing dollars, we're committing American lives. Whether or not we have actual troops deployed over there, this is a matter for the American people to weigh in on. We also have strong agreement, however, on the fact that we have to do something about Iran, and under no circumstances can they have a nuclear weapon that they could use on us. So I think there's strong agreement on those principles, and I think that's a place that we can start from, right?
Go ahead. Just one thing is the other thing that you need to keep, or that I believe that we should keep in the back of our mind, is the president, the commander-in-chief, needs to have tools in exigent circumstances to deal with real threats. And so when you look at the War Powers Act of
this commander-in-chief or any commander-in-chief.
Any commander-in-chief, yeah, exactly. You need to be able to deal with emerging threats in a sometimes very expeditious manner. And so the 48-hour notification, the 60 days with the 90 deploy. I mean, that's all stuff that I think is we need to have the ability for a commander-in-chief to do something in exigent circumstances.
Congresswoman Skolton talked about committing dollars. This is from the Associated Press this week. The Pentagon has told senators that it needs roughly $80 billion, mostly to cover the cost of the U.S. war against Iran, adding to what is already a sizable military spending boost being sought by President Trump in this latest appropriations bill. What do you make of that $80 billion number, that ask?
Well, we need to dig into exactly what that means. I mean, we need to make sure that we are, everybody keeps throwing out the, peace through strength. We need to make sure that we can deliver and make sure that, our enemies or potential enemies are afraid to go to war with us. And so having money to make sure that we are, training and equipping our service members, I think is incredibly important. Where that actual number falls, that requires some investigation.
$80 billion war spending bill.
This week we'll be voting on a veterans bill that proposes cutting billions of dollars from veterans' health care, including essential services for veterans that are suffering from tinnitus and sleep apnea, two conditions that can potentially lead to suicide. I think we have a lot of places where we can spend that money, including on our war heroes who have already served our country. And I think before we go committing more American dollars and American lives, we need to see that there's a strong plan. I agree 100% wholeheartedly. We need to make sure that the United States is in a position of strength and our enemies are afraid of going to war with us. That is not only an issue of the amount of dollars that we're willing to commit to that, but it's about having a strong and effective plan before we run headlong into starting wars with major adversaries.
What's the reasoning for those cuts to the veterans services?
It's not my bill.
Is it Bill you're submitting?
Sorry, didn't know you on the spot, Troy.
It's not my bill either, but I know that they are expanding, some other issues like the Major Richard Starr Act. There's the provisions in that are being paid for with some of these reductions on the tinnitus and the sleep apnea. So
I signed the discharge petition on the Major Richard Starr bill. We have a mechanism. It ensures that wounded warriors will receive their disability benefits even if they're retired before 20 years, even before they were medically discharged.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important. We have a discharge petition on the House floor. We could get that done separately. Again, I don't think this is about scarcity of resources, and I consider myself a pretty fiscally conservative Democrat, but it's about priorities.
For folks who don't speak DC, what is a discharge petition? What does that do?
It is a unique procedural tool wherein the party in the minority can force a piece of legislation to the House floor if they secure a majority of votes on that bill. Democrats have been able to do that 3 times. On substantive policy positions, including the Epstein files. You may be familiar.
It's supposed to be about taking care of those who've taken care of us. One hand washes the other. And whenever an organization or a government or a country can no longer perform that for those that are willing to basically lay down their lives for our freedoms in a patriotic way, then that government is destined of doom, of failure. Period. no ifs, ands, buts about it. We want to preach the message, no soldier left behind, no soldier left behind, even if one gets killed in active duty in another country in bringing their remains back home. But yet, no, we're wanting to cut all these different programs.
For this, next offensive in Iran, we don't have to, cut off veterans who have served our country and are suffering from, conditions like tinnitus and sleep apnea in order to say we can pay for the Richard Starr Act, right? I think that we can do all of those essential health care provisions, and let's take a closer look at the $80 billion and come up with a little bit better plan.
As somebody who's in the majority,
You can't throw the water out with the baby, or the baby out with the water, pertaining to having common sense policies.
To get play on the House floor. So that's traditionally what a discharge petition is.
And let's not forget, every representative, right, it's not just an individual in a game of power dynamics, right? We are speaking for 750,000 American people, right? So when I sign the Major Richard Starr discharge petition, it's on behalf of the brave men and women in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District who served our country, and I want to make sure that they can get the health care that they need.
You mentioned your district, we only have a few minutes left. Have you ever visited the 3rd Congressional District, and have you ever visited the 2nd District of Montana, correct?
2nd District, yes.
Yeah.
Have either of you
No,
visited?
but you are welcome anytime. We were talking fly fishing earlier, and we have some really incredible
Where do I fly
rivers.
into?
At GRR, Grand Rapids, best airport in the country.
Where's the first place you take him if he comes to your district?
Oh, well, he mentioned fly fishing, and obviously Montana has some great fly fishing, so I'm not going to say it on air where the spot is where I'd take him, because it's the best
Gotta
kept
keep the
secret.
secret
Yeah,
spot secret.
exactly. But we'll take you fly fishing.
Where's the first place you take the Congresswoman if she comes to Montana?
Montana is such a beautiful state. In my district, I get the farmers and ranchers and coal miners, but I've also got the Beartooth Highway, which is just spectacular. It's going from Red Lodge, Montana, into Yellowstone Park. It's the you see a lot of postcards with pictures.
It's an area that I've never been up into that I would always love to go up into.
Well, on the 50 states and infrastructure, this Great American State Fair is happening on the National Mall right in our backyard here. On this issue of bipartisanship, do you think the 250th anniversary of the birth of this country is bringing members of Congress together as we move to the 4th of July holiday? Is there more bipartisanship happening because of it, or is it creating more tensions?
I certainly hope so. I mean, it's a notable part in the history of this country. I mean, I remember...
It's a time to reflect. And I ain't talking about the reflection poll, but it is a time to reflect.
Kid who was completely apolitical. I was a kid.
Yeah.
It was a very exciting time, and I hope that we can all embrace that at this landmark for this country.
Yeah.
There's some people concerned about President Trump speaking on the National Mall as part of this fair, and there are some states sending official delegations or not to the state fair.
I'm with Troy. I continue to feel a strong sense of unity, and a greater combining of our purposes as representatives in this country. And people talk a lot about how we're in these totally unprecedented times, and I think in some ways we are, but in some ways we're right in the midst of where America has always been, which is people who disagree coming together to find the best solutions possible. And I see that happening every single day. I think AI-wise is
If we cannot determine where the line is regarding the better, the good, then we truly are doomed.
Where are you going to be for 4th of July?
I'm going to be right home in West Michigan marching in our parades. I can't wait. We have 50 interns, 50 young people who have come out to help in our campaign side, and we're going to be all across West Michigan celebrating our big, beautiful country.
Congressman, where are you going to be?
Well, we have a tradition of going out. We have some friends that ranch in the middle of the state. They've got a pond in the middle of the ranch, and a bunch of families get together, and we just camp there. I mean, once I barbecued a rattlesnake that came into camp and served that up. And
you got to be careful which part you serve.
Yeah, exactly. And then and part of that is that's when they also brand their cattle. So that's a fun part of it. And they have a little local parade down there. So I'm hoping that I get to do that again. That's been one of our family traditions.
Well, happy 4th of July.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, happy 4th to you.
That's all the time we have. Montana Congressman
I'd love to be able to do something like that.
Colton, thanks for joining us on Ceasefire.
Thanks for having me.
There you go, folks. Good luck to all of us. God bless our troops. God bless America, and God bless our endeavors. So long.